We're live. Hey, everybody, and welcome to the first episode of The Real Show, where we are real people giving you real content on real estate. My name is Jordan Rossman. I'd like to welcome you to the show. I'm joined by my co-host, Alfredo Torres from Mortgage Sense. And tonight, in this first episode of The Real Show, we're going to be talking about the ins and outs of first-time home buying. Before we get into the show, I just want to send it over to my man Alfredo for a minute to say hello and introduce himself, and then we'll get into the show. Alfredo, say hello.
Hello. Thank you, Jordan. So yeah, I'm so excited to be doing this show with Jordan. It's going to be super awesome. There's going to be a lot of good, real content, experiences, information, and please feel free if you have any questions. If there's something you want us to touch on, we'll do our best to get to it in the show. But if not, we will message you or we'll get in touch with you. You can also get in touch with us through our Facebook page or whichever way you want. Leave those comments below the post or on the YouTube chat, whatever's best. But awesome. So let's get to the show. So Jordan, I'm going to ask you the first little bit here. So can you walk us through the whole home buying process from start to end? Is that okay?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think, you know what, Alfredo, I think that when I meet with people who are looking to buy their first house, I think this might be one of the biggest sort of misunderstood topics, misunderstood topics, is like, what does the process look like? Like, where do I start? What's the first thing I do? And like, how do I get from today, never bought a house before, to living in my new house? So in a nutshell, basically the way the process goes, step number one, you've got to meet with a mortgage agent. You got to find out, like, what can I afford? What do I qualify for? So that you can actually have an accurate budget to bring to your realtor. So first step, meet with a mortgage agent. Second step, whether you're a couple and you've got a spouse, or if you're just solo, you need to either have a conversation with yourself or with your spouse. Like, what do we want in a house? One of the sort of two categories that I like to ask people to fit themselves into is, are you a move-in ready type of person, or are you a fixer-upper type of person? You know, my wife is watching and she might disagree, but you know, I'm a move-in ready kind of guy. I'm not that handy. She thinks I'm handy, but I'm not that handy. You know, I can't go in and fix the floors and paint the house and put a backsplash in and upgrade the house. You know what? I needed to move into a house that was ready to move into. Now, on the other side of the spectrum, I've got clients that, you know, are pretty handy, whether they work in trades or they just know how to do stuff, whatever it is. You know, they find that perfect house, but the floors are wrong, or they find that perfect house, but it needs a new bathroom or a new kitchen, and they can deal with that. So step number two is find out what type of house you would like to buy. Step number three, find a realtor. Find somebody that's knowledgeable, somebody that's available, and somebody that you're comfortable with. You're going to be spending a lot of time with this realtor, so make sure that you get along with them. They've got sort of a good vibe about them that you can connect with. You know, for anybody who has bought a house, you'll know that it's a very intimate purchase. It's something that, you know, you spend a lot of time and energy on. So you want to do it with somebody that you feel comfortable with. So once you've picked your realtor, the next step is to start looking at houses. So whoever your realtor is will start sending you listings that fit the criteria that you figured out in step number two, and you go see houses. One point I want to mention to people is that there's no right amount of houses. I've had clients that have seen two houses and the second one they saw was just perfect and they love it. I've had clients that have seen 15, 20 houses before they found the one. Just make sure that when you find the one that you are ready to go. So whether it's 2, 10, 15, 20 houses, when you find the house, we start the next step in the process, which is putting in an offer. So at this point, you're going to sit down with your realtor. They're going to write up the offer. They're going to put in certain conditions on the offer, whether it's a financing condition, home inspection, insurance, whatever your condition is, they're going to put it in. You're going to put forward a deposit, and you're going to put forward whatever price that you wanted to pay for that house. So once you put it in an offer, Hopefully your offer gets accepted so we can move on to the next step, which is the conditional phase. So once you have an accepted offer, a conditional sale, a sale that is conditional upon whatever you put in that offer, we start the conditional period where it's up to the buyer to fulfill those clauses. So if it's a financing clause for a mortgage, you need to fulfill the financing obligations with your mortgage agent. Home inspection clause, you need to have the home inspection. Once you've done those things and you've fulfilled those clauses, assuming that everything is to your liking, we move to the fun part. This is the part where I tell people to celebrate. We can firm up the deal. So we do a document that takes away any of the conditions, and now the house is going to be yours. So typically from that point, there's anywhere from 30 to 90 days before closing day. In that time, this is the time to get all your documents into your insurance company, switch over utilities, call a moving company. Anything that you need to do to get ready to move into that house is what you do in that period of time. And then that takes us to really the final step of the process, which is moving day. You get to move into your new house. So typically, that's how the home buying process works. Just one thing to keep in mind, for the most part, that's a bit of a roadmap to first day looking at houses to, moving in. There's always a little bit of, a unique circumstance here and there. So don't be alarmed if something comes up that's a little out of the ordinary. But for the most part, that's what the home buying process looks like. So way back in step one, we talked about meeting with a mortgage agent. So Alfredo, one of the questions that I get asked most often, I do get more mortgage questions than I would like, but basically, what are the different types of mortgages? Like, I know that a mortgage is a loan, but what types of mortgages are available to people?
That's right, Jordan. The mortgage is a loan, and your house is used as collateral for that loan. And there's a few different kinds, but the two most known is fixed and variable. There's also adjustable and other kinds, but let's just touch on fixed and variable because I know we're trying to keep this, in a good time frame. So variable mortgage, you qualify at 4.64. And that's just to make sure that you can handle fluctuation, because in the variable rate mortgage, your rate can fluctuate. So it can go down or it could go up. And that all depends on an assessment done by the government every 3 months. They let us know how the economy is rolling. And based on those statistics and data, they'll adjust interest rates accordingly. So that's the variable rate. Some people like it. Why would you like it? Most of the time, it is historically lower than the fixed rate mortgage. Right now, rates are low across the board, but still, some people will be comfortable with the variable rate mortgage because you do pay a little bit less. There's less of a cost to break the mortgage on a variable rate mortgage. And I can go into that later on. The other option is the fixed rate mortgage. This is for people that like more of a kind of stability, in a sense, where it's a fixed payment. They have the option to do a mortgage from a 1-year term all the way to a 10-year term. That rate won't change in that term. So, if your payment's $1,200 a month plus your property taxes and you're doing a 5-year, you know that for the next 60 months, that's what you're going to pay. And you might pay a little bit of a higher rate. Right now, the difference is minimal, but that just lets you have some peace of mind. It gives you better sleep at night for those that can't handle that fluctuation or that risk. And along with that, if you're buying a house, those are the interest rates and the types of mortgages, but there's also something called purchase plus improvements. So if you're finding a house that you can see yourself living in, but there's things like you want to change the floors or you want to upgrade the kitchen, you may want to change a bathroom, something like that. We do have a product called Purchase Plus Improvements, and what they'll let you do is they will let you buy the house, upgrade it with your own money, and once it's done, it gets assessed, referred back to the mortgage company, and they will give you so much money towards your improvements. That way you don't have a mortgage loan and a Home Depot card at high interest, so that you can roll it all into your mortgage. It takes away a lot of stress. It takes away interest that you don't need to pay for. So those are just some programs that we have that you may not know about.
Fantastic. So before I get into my next question for you, which is going to be sort of on the same topic you were just talking about, I just want to ask the audience a real quick question. In the comment section below, whether you're watching on YouTube, Facebook, wherever you're watching, just a quick yes or no. Are you enjoying the show so far? So Alfredo,
Yeah.
you mentioned in, when you're talking about parts of different types of mortgages, and you mentioned when you're talking about the variable mortgage, that 4.64 number. I know that that's a number that has really made a lot of headlines lately because there's been some new mortgage rules, and that number has really been sort of the talk in some of those articles. So real quick, in maybe 30, 40 seconds, sort of give me layman's terms, but explain the new mortgage rules to me and what that means for a first-time home buyer.
Okay, in a nutshell, the way we qualify a variable rate mortgage is based on 464. It's considered a stress test. That way, if there's a fluctuation in the rate, the banks or the lenders know that you can handle that fluctuation. So you're qualifying at 464, so you need a little more income, but you can handle that change in rate if it happens. What changed on October 17th is for fixed rate mortgages, the way it used to be is if your rate was, let's say, 2.39 for 5 years, you were going to qualify at 2.39. So let's say you're buying a $300,000 house and you needed 50 grand to qualify at 239. That's great. But as of October 17th, now you need to qualify at 4.64 for the fixed rate mortgages. That's the biggest change in all of these rules. And so what that means is now you have to qualify for that $300,000 house on an income probably around 70, 75 grand. I can do the numbers for you so that you know the big difference. I don't have that on me right now. I'll have that on me next time. But basically, the stress test is now for the fixed and the variable rate mortgage. And unfortunately, that may hinder some, but that's the biggest change to all these mortgage rules.
So basically, what you're saying is affordability has changed.
Absolutely.
Right? Like if you, I mean, because you're talking about a $50,000 income now to a $75,000 income. The average home buyer can't just go out and say, okay, I'm going to change my income by 25,000. It's really just taken, you can't afford the 300,000 anymore. It's now 260, 250, whatever that calculates out to.
That's absolutely right. So instead of now being able to buy that $300,000 house with the income you have, you're going to have to purchase something, that might be a little bit smaller, smaller in area and also probably smaller in price. So maybe a house in Barrie that you were looking at might not be here anymore. Maybe places like Orillia, a little further north or on the outskirts of the main cities, you'll have that buying power.
Right. Very cool. First of all, a quick little side note before we get into the next question. I'm getting some people in the chat who are letting me know that our signs are in fact backwards.
No.
I don't know. Are they backwards? In the chat, real quick, is this backwards? If it is, so be it. I might just keep it, but I'm just kind of curious to know if people are seeing this backwards.
Oh, I thought we fixed that.
Either way, we're sorry, people. It says The Real Show, real people, real content, real estate. So anyways, let's get back to it.
Okay, so I got a question for you.
Okay.
So because this is something that, when I bought a house, I went in blind. Like I went in hard blind and I made a bunch of mistakes back in 2007 when I bought my place. So I wonder, like nowadays, because what are the mistakes that first-time home buyers are making? That way they don't make them. That way we can advise them on that. So what are you seeing that comes up a lot?
So I'm going to talk about 3 things, and I'm actually going to sort of reverse engineer it from 3 mistakes to 3 pro tips, I think, that will help you eliminate these mistakes. The first one is, I think everybody should be extremely conservative and overestimate everything. So what do I mean by that? When we talked about step 2 of the home buying process, and it was, finding which type of house you are. If you're in that fixer-upper type of state where, you can go in and say, I can fix this, overestimate it. And when I say overestimate the cost of what it's actually going to take to fix up that house, and overestimate the time. So if you think that it's going to cost you $5,000 and it's going to take you a month to do it, I'll tell you from experience, from myself and from my clients, when you get into that first house, I know, Alfredo, you've been there since 2007 and you're doing some work on your house right now. Sorry to put you on the spot here, but
All
when you
good.
get into that first house, you know, the things that you planned for the first 3-4 months of you living in that house are probably not going to happen. It's extremely expensive moving into a house, all the little things you need to buy. It's extremely tiring. I mean, it's incredibly rewarding, but at the same time, you have to understand that it's going to be tiring, and you're going to get home from work and you're not going to want to, you know, do the trim in your basement, and you're not going to want to paint. And so as much as there certainly are people that can do the fixer-upper type of house, it's just everybody that I've spoken to that's done it has said it's been more expensive and more time consuming than they thought. So be conservative, overestimate. If you think it's going to cost $2,000, say, am I okay if it costs $4,000? Then you're fine. If you think it's going to take 3 months, but you say, you know what, if it took 9 months, that's fine, then you're fine. But just make sure you're conservative and overestimate. Now, the other thing that I think people should do is pay attention to the neighbors and pay attention to the neighborhood. When you're thinking about buying a house, you know, you don't even have to do this with your realtor. While you're sort of thinking about it, go for a drive. Like, park your car and go for a walk on the street that you're thinking about living on, and walk a couple streets each way. Check out the people. You know, see like who you're going to be living with. A lot of people get into these neighborhoods and they say, it'll be fine. They don't really pay attention to what their neighbor's house is. Sometimes it's great and sometimes it's a disaster. I actually got a great pro tip today from Denise. Go for a drive and go for a walk on your new street on garbage day. You know, I had never heard of this tip until today. And then I was thinking about it. Like, I've driven on some streets in the areas in town that are near the university and college. And you drive on those streets on garbage day and there's like couches and TVs and everything on the front yard. Like, that may not be the area you want to live in if you've got a young family. So you want to look on garbage day, maybe in particular. If you don't have time, drive the neighborhood, walk the neighborhood, go get a feel. And then the last mistake that I think people make, and sort of a tip associated with that, comes actually back to what you do, Alfredo, and that's really understanding their affordability and understanding the process of getting a mortgage and making sure that they get that pre-approval before they start. You know, I've had clients where, you know, they've met with their mortgage agent, they've talked a little bit about it. There's a couple things that maybe they didn't discuss with their mortgage agent. And we get into, you know, seeing 10, 12 houses. They find the one, they put in an offer, and something falls apart in their financing. So really, people need to make sure that they have a good understanding of how all of this works. And the best part about it is, typically mortgage agents and buyers, real estate agents, don't charge you anything. Like, it's pretty much a free resource. You know, you don't have to pay money to these people, and they'll answer all the questions and they'll represent you. So, you know, take advantage of that.
That's a good point. That's huge.
Yeah, I think that's, you know, that's something that people miss out on, is, you know, not taking advantage of the resources that they have with them. Typically, when you hire a realtor, not only do you have the realtor, ask what their brokerage will do for you. You know, some of these agents that work for big brokerages have a ton of resources that are available to their buyers at no cost. So take advantage of that. That's my last sort of pro tip. Now, speaking of tips, Alfredo, I would like to ask you a question about tips. So we've talked about sort of some of the basic fundamentals of a real estate transaction for a first-time home buyer. We've talked about what types of mortgages there are, but I want to ask you, like, and I asked this sort of as we were, you know, chatting about what was going to be in the show. Like, if your brother was going to buy a house and he had never bought a house before, and he was going to buy a house in a place where you couldn't sell a mortgage, but you know exactly what you know today, like, what are 3 things you would tell your brother today if he was going to go get his first mortgage ever?
If there was 3 things that you need to pay attention to and that you need to have in good standing, I would say number 1 is credit. If you want a mortgage, if you want a nice low interest rate mortgage, a competitive offering rate out there with the mortgage lenders, there's criteria. You need to have good credit. Your credit score needs to be 6. You'll probably do it with 630, but if you have a 650 or a 680 score, those are probably, the 650 is good. The 680 is great. I can get you whatever you need with that. Along with that, it's not just the score though. You need to have 2 credits, 2 types of credit, whether it's a car loan, a loan and a credit card, a line of credit and a car loan, a line of credit and a credit card. You need to have 2 credit facilities, and you should have them established for 2 years. And those credit limits should be at least 1,500, 20, 500, because that's what the lenders are looking for. They're looking for no late payments or the one-offs. They're looking for 2 years of credit history. They're looking for a stronger credit score. So that is the biggest of the 3. The next one I would say would be income. So you need to have your taxes paid up to date. You need to file your taxes. If you know you're going to be buying a house in the next couple of years or few years, do your best to get your taxes done. Make sure if you're self-employed, you're filing them properly. If you're an employee and there's bonuses and other such things, you're putting it all in, making sure that they've done it right for you. Because if you're on overtime or shift premiums, the job letter is good, but we won't be able to add that extra income, and that might just be what you need to qualify for your property. And the last thing is down payment. Without a down payment, we can't do a whole lot. You could have the best credit in the world, the best income, but if you don't have down payment, then we don't have the 5% to get you in. You have to put some skin in the game, and unfortunately, it's minimum 5%. So if you know you're buying in 3 years or 2 years time, look at what house prices are. Talk to your realtor. What are house prices going to be in a couple of years? Then work backwards. Okay, I'm going to look at a $300,000 house. I'm going to need $15,000, which is 5% down. Then from there, okay, 15 grand divided by 36 months. Okay, so I have to put away so much a month so that I have that down payment. There's also a program out there. We have a lender that does borrow down payment. So if you have great income and good credit, you don't have a lot of debt, we can do the borrow down payment. And then that way you don't have to wait 3 years when those houses appreciate even further. But yeah, those are the 3 key things: income, credit, and down payment. That's what you need to know.
Awesome. So basically, we've run out of time on sort of what we had budgeted here for time, but I want to do you reminded me of something, and I want to do maybe a quick little Mythbusters. Is this the truth or is this a myth? I was told the reality is that sometimes in some people's lives, you have to miss a payment on a bill. And I was told from a mortgage standpoint, there's actually a difference in whether you miss a payment on a credit card versus missing a payment on a cell phone bill. So I was told that missing something like a cell phone bill or maybe a utility doesn't affect your credit as much as missing a credit card payment or a mortgage payment. Is that true?
Okay, so cell phone bills are actually on your credit bureau. Although it's not credit, your cell phone does show on your bureau, and it does show the payment history. Is a cell phone missed payment as important as not paying a line of credit or a Visa or a loan? Probably not, but it's still going to impact. I'm not saying don't pay your bills, but Hydro doesn't show on your credit bureau unless it's gone to collections, and that's a whole different story. Enbridge doesn't show. So if there's something you want to be maybe a few days behind on, I would probably choose one of them, just because those won't impact your credit bureau, your credit score, and impact your ability to finance or a house down the road. But obviously, budget. It's all about budgeting.
Beautiful. Yeah. Awesome. So listen, I think this has been a good first episode. I really hope, I'd love some feedback. We're actually, yeah, we got quite a few people watching right now. I'd love some feedback. Did you learn something new from this show? Is there something that you feel is unanswered still and you'd like us to answer? Anything in the comment section below, whether you're on the YouTube stream, if you're on Facebook, whatever it is, in the comment section below, let us know. Did you enjoy the show? Did you learn something new? Or is there a question you'd like us to dive a little bit deeper on? I do also want to give a shout out to everybody who watched. I know that this episode will be recorded, and Alfredo, I feel really special. Like, I feel like this show is going to be something special. So people will go back in time and watch this episode one day. And I just want to give a shout out to everybody who tuned in while the Blue Jays game was on. We did win today. So we need 3 more wins. But anyways, super excited about that. Super excited that people have, enjoyed the show so far. And thanks a lot for the great information. And so next week, Tuesday, 7 p.m., we're going to be doing another show. We're going to be talking about how to build, maintain, or just start a real estate investment portfolio. How do you become a real estate investor? So thanks again for everybody tuning in to the first episode of The Real Show, where we are real people giving you real content on real estate. We'll see you next week, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.